The idea would be to put a hold on all immigration for the next 5, 10, maybe 50 years. Let the country reestablish itself as a nation. And at the same time, we could give a preference to Europeans. There are about 200,000 people who leave the country every year. If those are replaced with 200,000 people, some from South Africa, for example, South African whites, that would help equilibrate. That would help us reach a new equilibrium in terms of what the nation should be about.
What's the argument that America would be better off with a higher percentage of white people?
Because diversity is a terrible weakness to the United States. Diversity means that we still have race riots. Diversity means that every attempt to distribute resources is a shoving game. Have the Hispanics got enough? Have the blacks got enough? Have the Asians got enough? Whether it's from the Harvard entering class, the freshman class, to the nominations for the Oscars. All of these things weaken a nation. In 1945, the United States had 125 million people. Nobody thought the country was overpopulated. Now we have 325. Where do we stop? Even to have a nation in which we can live comfortably, stopping immigration simply on the basis of numbers alone would be a legitimate and rational thing to do.
But your argument also has to do with racial dominance.
Yes, because until 1965, the United States had an immigration policy that was clearly designed to keep the country majority white. There was nothing wrong with that. And at that time, when Americans were asked to change the law, if someone had told them, in 70 years, from being 90% of the population to a minority, no one would have voted for such a law.
A lot of economists make the argument that there was a baby boom in this country and in other countries that participated in World War II, and that subsequent generations have not reproduced at the same level. And so we now face this dire situation where the ratio of workers to retirees is getting lower and lower. And without immigration, that ratio is going to be untenable, and we won't be able to take care of our senior citizens with Social Security. And also our economy will grind to a halt because there won't be enough producers, and that immigration is actually a net good regardless of the race of the people who come here.
If that were a motive for immigration, why do we let in so many Guatemalans, Haitians, Vietnamese, Hmong, who have no skills practically, who don't even speak English? If we seriously thought of immigration as a tool to strengthen the economy, who would we let in? We would let in high IQ, well-educated, English-speaking people who, if they were white, would fit in much more rapidly and without problems than any other group of people. So the idea that somehow our immigration policies are in the interest of our economy, that's complete nonsense. And even if they did, even if immigration were a boon to the economy in some absolute sense, I do not want my people, European Americans, to be replaced by outsiders. I'm prepared to be poorer, even poorer, if that means that I live in a nation in which my destiny can unfold without the unwanted embrace of others.
Would you be interested in maybe a best of both worlds from your perspective, where the white majority is protected, but we also protect the economic viability and fiscal solvency of our country?
That would be the best of both worlds, yes. We could protect the European majority and at the same time let people into our country who are productive, who are hardworking, and who will assimilate. That's an obvious solution. And yet those who propose it are considered white supremacists, Nazis, bigots, not fit for polite company. This is insane. That would be an obvious solution.
You've been called those terms and you feel that's unfair?
It's entirely unfair. If a black person expresses a preference for black culture and says he prefers to be around black people, what do you call such a person? A black person. What about a white person who prefers white culture, listens to classical music, prefers to be around white people? You call such a person a Nazi. This is a fatal double standard. Unless whites are allowed to express their own preferences and allowed to prefer their own culture, they will simply be shoved aside by people with sharp elbows who make no secret about preferring their own people, their own culture at our expense.
Do you think that maybe the election that we just had is a way of expressing that desire to be able to openly advocate for white interests?
This presidential election may be the first in perhaps 100 years in which white people acted like everyone else. Black people vote their own interests. Hispanics vote their own interests. Perhaps on this occasion it was a baby step towards the idea of, lo and behold, white people voting their own interests too, and it's about time.
Would it upset you if I said that a big part of America's culture is diversity?
That is a very, very recent view. Only very recently has anyone said that diversity is a strength for America. If you look at some of the founders, John Jay, for example, in the Federalist Papers, he goes on at great length what a wonderful thing homogeneity is, because he recognized that diversity of race, religion, diversity of ethnicity, all of these things are sources of conflict, which is precisely what they are not only in the United States, but all around the world. To have somehow hypnotized ourselves into thinking that this great defect, this great source of conflict is a strength, is to me one of the great con jobs in human history.